Delhi's Ira Singhal topped the Union Public Services Commission Civil Services Exam 2014. With this, she became the first differently able candidate to top the coveted exam. An engineer from Delhi's NSIT and an MBA from FMS, she has worked for Cadbury India before and is currently an IRS officer. She shares her experience with the viewers of Jagran. How do you feel after being successful in IAS exam 2014?
I don't feel any different. I don't necessarily feel like I've achieved something because मेरा aim कुछ और था, तो I'm still left with that. But it's nice to clear finally.
Whom would you like to thank for this in the IAS exam and why?
I would like to thank all my family and all my friends. Mainly my family, because they've always supported me, and whoever I am or I shall be ever is mainly because of them. And my friends have always, in fact, they've actually helped me study. I used to sit at home and so I never knew exactly what topics were the current ones and where to study from, and they would be the ones who would provide me with information. And a lot of them actually got me material and all, and they were very emotionally supportive, and they were the ones who believed more than I did that I should do this.
Please tell us about your family and educational background.
I did most of my schooling from Delhi. I started in Meerut. I completed in Delhi, and I'm a computer engineer from NSIT Delhi and an MBA from FMS Delhi, and I worked with Cadbury in Bombay for 2 years, and I'm an only child right now, and so there's just me, my dad and my mom.
When did you choose to become a civil servant and why?
I decided on being a civil servant when I was very, very young, mainly because back then there were, well, I wanted to be either a doctor or a civil servant, and those were the only two options I felt were the ones that helped you to, serve the society and help people around you, and I had a huge craze for that. So I was very little, there's no really a pinpointing moment, and can't really say that this is when, but largely when I was really tiny.
Please tell us your views on women empowerment.
It's not just Indian women, it's women across the world. We are of course the strongest, emotionally the stronger gender, mainly because the kind of traumas and the kind of experiences that women go through are very different, and they require a lot of mental strength. We're never given enough credit for that, and women ourselves don't believe, we ourselves don't believe in all our strength, but it is true that we are the stronger gender when it comes to emotional and mental strength. It is, I think, the golden era for India where that many women have cleared in that top four ranks are for women. So I hope that all the others who thought that they couldn't or weren't smart enough or thought that they couldn't study hard enough or that maybe they didn't deserve it, you all do, and you all need to start believing in yourself, and every one of us can do it, every one of us. And it's not about the civils exam, it's about everything in life. Whatever you feel like you should be achieving, whatever you feel your life should be about, you can make it. You just have to believe that you can, and you have to work towards it, and not let other people's opinions of what your role in society is bog you down. There is no set role for any of us. All of us do our bit. This is a different world. This is a world, from my perspective, is a different world from anybody else's perspective. My situations, my life is different. My role in this society is different. So all of us have to contribute. As 50% of this country's population, if we don't contribute, there is no growth, there is no development. So it's I think amazing that top 5 have 4 women in it, and I hope this trend continues and more girls come into the services and be a part of be a contributing and productive part of our society. Mainly, in our country, women are supposed to put their career as a back-burning option. A career is a second priority. Your first priority has to be your family. And that's very wrong. Why is it for men that career is the priority and not for the women? If we are living in an equal society, if we're all supposed to contribute equally, then our priorities should exactly be the same. And that's the biggest problem, that women are supposed to give up their career for their family. You're supposed to take a back seat. If your husband needs to move somewhere, your career takes a back seat. You're supposed to move with him, and a lot of the women that I know have left really high paying jobs mainly because their husbands had to get transferred, and so they had to transfer with them, and they couldn't work anymore, and the places that they went to weren't conducive to that. So I do believe that as women, we have been made by society to think that we're lesser and we're supposed to be the ones who compromise at everything, and we're supposed to give way and not treat our careers as priority. So I think that's one thing that needs to be changed, and that's one thing which is a problem.
How successful can a woman be as an IAS officer?
As successful as anybody else. I don't really see it as a gender-based role. I don't think it has anything to do with whether you're a male or a female. It's just a job, and I think all of us are equally capable. We bring different capabilities with different mindsets and different backgrounds, and I think all of that gels together, and together as a service we should be treated as equals, and we all perform exactly the same way.
What would you do for the betterment of the women in India?
Firstly, women education. I think that's the biggest priority. Besides sanitation and nutrition, education of women across the country is a big priority. If there is 5 rupees in the family, that is spent on the male child's education and not on the female child's education, because the male can use that education apparently, not a female. It is so sad because the mother is the one that brings up the child. The mother is the one that nurtures the child. She is the first teacher that any child has. Now, if she herself does not have the right equipment, which comes with knowledge and education, then how is she passing that on? So I think women's education is the first priority which we as a country need to focus on.
Please tell us about your hobbies and interests.
I love reading, fiction mainly. I don't read any non-fiction. I love traveling. I've done quite a bit of the world, and I would love to complete it before I die. I love dancing, theatre. I've done a lot of theatre. I love cooking. I do a lot of palmistry. Been doing it for almost since I was 13, and I've recently started learning astrology. I love watching football. I love music, movies, and I actually like exploring new things. So I do almost everything that I come across.
How many attempts did you take to achieve the success? How did you evolve after each attempt?
I started my preparation in 2010. I'd given an attempt before that, but that was just, I got up from the bed and went to the exam hall. I started my preparation in 2010 after I quit my job. So 2010, 11, 13 and 14, these were my serious attempts. I cleared in each of these. I did not expect myself to clear in 2010 because I was very new to the field. I had no background. I had heard that everybody studies for 2-3 years before they actually make it, so I did not expect to clear, and I cleared in the category. And so my thing was that I always analyzed what mistakes I had made and what areas do I think I'm weak at, and I would work at that. So my first attempt, I got an equal score. So the strange thing that happened with me was every time the pattern had changed when I next gave the attempt. So 10, there was an optional subject in the preliminary, and the way the mains paper used to come was very different. 11, there came CSAT, and again the mains paper had changed. And 13, completely the syllabus changed, and the whole system was overhauled, and you had only one optional now. 14 was the only time when there was not such a major change. So mainly in 10, I worked at everything because that was my first attempt. 11, again, CSAT was relatively easy for me, even though I had done really well for the optional prelims. But CSAT was easy because of my MBA background, and I did not have much of an issue with languages and with maths and stuff. So for me, the preparation was more about realizing what areas I needed to work on and what I needed to focus on, and then go from there.
Please tell us about your previous selection in civil services.
So every time, strangely, I have been selected for the same service. Actually, I ranked for the same service. I was never given a service because I did not fit the medical criteria, and because of which I had to keep giving the exam and keep hoping that okay, this year maybe. And 2010, 11 and 13, I cleared for IRS, Customs and Central Excise, which was my third choice. Actually fourth choice if I include IPS, but I'm never going to be eligible for IPS, so third choice technically.
What motivated you to reappear in the civil services exam?
See, I was very clear on what I had left my job for, and that was mainly to serve my country. So now there are multiple ways of serving. You can do that in any of the services. I truly believe that. But my problem is I like working directly with people, and I like giving a direct impact. Something that I can quantify and see that, okay, I made this person's life better. And with my current profile, IRS, A, I had not been given the profile. B, with that, I saw more of a back-end job rather than a front-end job, and I like doing the front-end. So I gave the exam mainly because I wanted to be working directly on ground in implementation and policy making.
What is your aim now as an IAS officer?
Well, for now, I'm looking to do my job really well. And one thing that I'm looking at is that the problem that I face in getting an allotment, other people don't face. So I'm looking to help change that policy and help make the system a little more inclusive.
What challenges did you face as a differently abled person? What would you like to do for them to make their life easier?
Yeah, so like I said, my biggest challenge was even after selection getting an allotment, and that is what I'm trying to work at and get going for other people and help them not face the same issue again.
How much time should one give for the preparation of IAS exam? When did you start preparing for IAS exam?
I started my preparation in 2010. I was very, very glad that there was a preliminary for the subjects, because that meant that I had already prepared it by the time the result came for the mains. Because what actually happens is all of us keep waiting, let me get selected for the mains first, then I will start preparation. So I was lucky and I did that, and I had already prepared geography at that point. I am not somebody who studies too much. In fact, I have so many hobbies that I have to actually fit time for studies in between all of those. I prepared really hard for my first attempt because I had quit a very important job and a very, very nice job for this. So I had that responsibility in my head. That point I prepared. It was not life and death for me. It was not something that if I had attached my ego with. But I thought that if I'm taking that risk, I need to make a sincere effort, something I had never done before in my life. So that time I started really hard, plus I was attending classes because I had no background in the subject. I didn't know anybody who had ever given the exam. I did not know what the exam was about. I did not even know about the services. And so that time I prepared really hard. After that, it was more about building up and more about adding to the knowledge. So I've never really prepared too much after 2010. I guess that time I can't really quantify, but I'm one of those people who, I'm an engineer, a typical engineer, studies at the last moment and goes. But I guess because I'd repeated it for 3 years, 4 years, it stuck around in my head. So, I never paid too much time on it. So.
Do you think examination is more analysis oriented now rather than fact oriented?
I'm somebody who can never remember a single thing. I cannot remember facts. I do not know the data for anything. I know rough figures. I don't know the exact figures. In fact, I love theatre, but because as an actor you have to learn lines and you have to mug it up, I don't like acting. I hate being on stage. I can only do impromptu and I can only just go and do something for my understanding, and which is why I prefer direction now rather than being on stage. But I do think it's completely analysis based, otherwise people like me would never be able to even clear prelims, because prelims questions again are analysis based now.
Is joining coaching institute indispensable for clearing the IAS exam?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's indispensable. My problem was because I came from a background where I had no information at all, and back then internet was not as active and there was not much data online about this exam. So for me, I had to join because I thought, okay, I don't even know where to start from. Like I didn't know the first textbook I was supposed to read. So only for that purpose I thought I needed it. But I don't think it's indispensable. Currently there's so much information, there's so much sharing of information that I don't think you necessarily have to. If you are one of those people who is not very self-motivated like me, and you need other people to push you to do something, and you need to be in an environment where everybody is doing it, and so you can feel guilty and start studying, then maybe you need to join. But other than that, if you're decently self-motivated, you don't need to.
Did you use internet? How helpful was it?
I did use the internet after my first attempt. Actually, no, I don't remember clearly in 2011, but 13 and 14 was completely internet based.
Which resource is most relevant to update the day-to-day knowledge as well as the backgrounds of events and how?
I actually went to a lot of websites, didn't really stick to one, and I went through a lot of coaching materials available in the market, and my main source has always been books. So for example, if you're preparing for history or you're preparing for even economics, I would rather go to an NCERT textbook and start from there, and that is what I did, rather than just go to coaching materials or recommended extra books. So I do look at the texts mostly, but I don't really go to any one website, and I didn't really go to any one website. I did, however, browse the government websites. This attempt I did that. I hadn't done that ever before, but this attempt I did go and browse the government websites for the ministries, directly ministries for each of the topics.
What type of mindset should the candidates keep to handle the evolving pattern of IAS examination?
Don't expect anything. If you expect something, that is when you fail. My every attempt has been of a different exam, so I never expect anything. I just prepare whatever is given in the syllabus and I go. I have never looked at past year question papers, not even once, and in fact I haven't even looked at the question papers I had given. So I don't believe in going with an expectation, because that is when you fail. So I just prepare every topic that I feel I can do, and I go from there.
Please enumerate the do's and don'ts for the IAS examination.
Don't expect anything, give it your best shot. From your end, prepare everything as much as you can. Don't compete with other people. Don't look at other people and think, okay, he has studied 15 hours, so I need to do that. Everybody is different, everybody needs different resources, and in fact the books that I may have studied may not work for you. You may not have that background, you may not have that knowledge base already with you, so you might need different books, different sources, different materials. So you can take help, and you should in fact discuss topics with your friends, because that obviously increases our knowledge and you get more analytical. But I would say don't set expectations and don't go with what other people are necessarily telling you. Do your thing, do what works for you. Just be honest about it, just be sincere, and do a lot of self-analysis, and stop blaming the world. Find faults in where you could have gone wrong.
How successful can a woman be as an IAS officer?
There is no differentiating between genders in terms of success as an IAS officer. I have not done the role. I am nobody to comment on what an IAS officer should be doing. I'm going to start my training. I'm going to get into that. But I feel any job cannot be defined by whether a man can do it or a woman can, unless of course it is lifting a certain amount of weight, which I do believe that we are probably less equipped to handle, though there are of course a lot of the girls who've done better than men around. But yeah, there can't be differentiation in terms of the jobs that women can do and men can do. So I think all of us are equally capable, equally qualified, and equally mentally and physically strong to do everything.